So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Business Insights November 2023. A little bit of a different one today because we've got two separate interviewees, I hope, because the first one is with us, and I'll introduce Kira in a second. Our second interviewer is dashing to us from a radio broadcast she's doing and is hoping to be with us shortly. If she isn't, there'll only be one interview. We'll go from there. So someone will probably join the call during the course of this discussion. Okay, so I want to introduce Kira. I'm going to let Kira try and pronounce her surname because I give up on that. Just for the properness of letting everybody know who you are. Kira is an SEO specialist. Rather than me, SEO is one of those things that everybody understands. Well, not everybody understands it, search engine optimization. People know that word, they go, oh yes, and they look at you very sagely and say, yes, search engine optimization. Absolutely, it's really important for everybody. If you were then to say to them, so go on then, explain that a bit further, they would dry up very quickly. It's one of those dark arts, I think, as we describe it as, that some people do actually understand in a bit more depth and the importance of it. So what we're going to have a little bit of a chat now with Kira and try and get a little bit under the skin of SEO, what it means, how to achieve it without actually debilitating your brain in the process and trying to work it out. But Kira, first of all, let me invite you to introduce yourself, pronounce your surname in a way that you will get it right and I won't, and tell us who and what your business is. Kira, over to you.
Of course. Hi everyone. My name's Kira and I own an SEO consultancy based in Cheltenham. My last name is Khoroshilova, which is a lot easier than it looks. So maybe next time you guys can say it yourself. So what is SEO? Weirdly enough, SEO is very easy once you spend many years doing it and you understand why you're doing the things you're doing. But from the get-go, of course, there are a lot of elements. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization, which is the process of improving your online visibility on search engines like Google, Bing, Yahoo, Yandex, and all the other ones. Because Google dominates search, so 98% of search is Google, we generally focus on Google itself.
Brilliant. And tell me, your business is called Diary of an SEO. Now, we all understand what a diary is and the diary of SEO is, but it's a great name. Is it? I mean, because it sticks in the mind. Why would that not be a great idea? But what took you to the idea of calling the business Diary of an SEO?
This is going to be such a letdown of a story, but I really liked Stephen Bartlett and he's got a podcast called Diary of a CEO. And I was like, that's clever. I'm going to steal it. So I changed it to SEO. It started as a community where I interview SEO specialists and then it grew to a business later. That's why.
Great. And that's the business name, Diary of an SEO. So look, watch out for it. So listen, SEO, search engine optimization. You gave us a great little intro line there. Can any type of business, I mean, we all have a website. We all have things that we go on to greater or lesser degrees. I'm going to say we all have bits of social media go on. That might be a rash statement. Some people don't. Some of us are not, shall we say, totally media savvy in terms of social media. SEO extends, I believe, and I'm thinking across social media and website content. I'm going to stop there and hand over to you because I don't really know what I'm talking about beyond that. So the question there is, any business invest in SEO?
Any business can invest in SEO. It just depends on the type of SEO. It's split into four main pillars. So depending on what your visibility priorities are and what your sales goals are, you can choose a different aspect of it. You don't have to do all of it like a normal business. So for example, branding, that would be a full SEO strategy. But something else like the medical sphere or a one product shop, that would be a different type of SEO.
Brilliant. Okay, so we're all of us, he said, just glancing around the screen, reasonably micro and small businesses around here. Just give us a feel for where that start point is. You know, where take it for granted that we don't know anything really about SEO other than the fact that it stands for search engine optimization. Start of a 10. Where do we engage?
Well, first of all, SEO is based on data. So the start would be either do your own research or ask someone to do research for you. You need to see the search volumes of what you're selling, where you want to sell and who you want to sell to. So before you even chat to an SEO specialist, you need to figure out the following things. You need to have your target demographic. You need to have your priorities. So what do you want from the project? What do you want to be seen for? And obviously you have to have a marketing budget to sustain SEO for many months because it's not a one-time thing. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, it's because I've got dogs around me and things are happening in the house and I never quite know who's going to bark or whatever's going to happen. So apologies if I mute and then forget to unmute. Okay, lovely. So you mentioned those 4 pillars there again. Can you just repeat those for us a little again, because that went very quickly, and then tell us with each of the pillars, give us an example of what that would look like. Where is a small business, where are they going with those?
So the 4 pillars of SEO is on-page SEO. So that's what is on your website. Off-page SEO, that is links pointing to your website. So for example, you create a Facebook page and then put your website URL on Facebook. That's called off-page SEO, and it's obviously broader. Then you've got technical SEO. So that's the code, the way your site is built and the way your site is structured. So it's called site architecture. There's actually a way to do it in a way that boosts your SEO. And content SEO, it's become a whole separate thing because of authority, trust, and credibility. So where you write about why you are better than your competitors, basically.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm really pleased to say, Stephanie, my next interview is just arriving, so things are going brilliantly according to plan. Okay, so how do I, as with anything in this world, metrics. Hi, Stephanie. We'll let you introduce yourself properly in a moment, Stephanie. So I've explained to people that you've been on air with a broadcast and you're my second interviewee. So everyone's aware. We'll let you introduce yourself properly in a minute. Kira, so as with anything that I invest in, and invest is a really good word, I need to understand what my payback is, what the metrics are, how I measure it. Even when I get to the point where I understand the SEO business of putting links in on and off page, as you would say, and the rest of it, how do I go about actually doing those metrics and understanding that what I'm doing is actually having an effect, brackets or not?
So that would also depend on your visibility priorities. For example, SEO is driving traffic to your website, so it's not exactly sales. So the biggest measurement would be how many site sessions did you have when you started SEO? And then 6 months down the line of doing SEO, has that changed? So we usually judge it in a 6 months period. Also, how many form fills, if that's something you're interested in, free trial requests, and obviously sales as well. So that is how you would measure if the SEO is working. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. Built into that quite clearly are the need to do some metrics on what your website is doing, to understand what your performance is before, during, and after, so that you can see and also understand what else you might have going on in the business that might be impacting those things. So there's quite a complex interplay there, and somehow you need to understand what the SEO side of that is doing. So exactly. worth thinking in mind. Okay, so I'm a one-man business. Well, I am a one-man business, but actually, hypothetically, you've got a one-man business. Your talents are being drawn all over the place. Not least, you've got the thing that you actually are doing in business, which we assume is the thing you're competent at, and then you've got all these other things like bookkeeping and having to do this and that and the other, and look after your SEO. So, how much time, if I'm saying to myself, I've got to get grips with this, what am I allowing for in terms of time, and how savvy do I need to be to actually think that I'm going to make a difference here?
So in terms of time that you need in the beginning of the project, it depends on what you want from it. A lot of people are hands off. They say, just do it. I don't care what you do. The results would be slower because it takes 2 hands to clap. And especially if it's your business, there's nobody else who knows better than you, even if I've got all my data. So usually the first month is very intense in terms of me or an SEO specialist getting information from you that only you know, and then your input in the beginning. And once all of that is set up, then it's generally an easier process and you become more distant as time goes on.
Okay. And in terms, so if I did start out in that way and I'm the first, making my first moves in the space, what kind of cost am I getting into?
Again, I always say it depends. That's like a widely used word in SEO because it does depend. If you say, I want to be number one for this keyword, and it will take me, 6 months to get there, that will be very different in terms of costs. So I've had projects from 7 hours per month to 200 hours per month. And that depends on what people want from that project. So again, generally SEO has a tenfold return on investment, or at least anyone that I've worked with, but the investment is really quite low for what you get in return if it's done right.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm with you. Okay, and so the principles of how of what SEO is for a small business and how it benefits if I'm coming at it for a first time. How does it? What am I actually doing in my small business world? How do I start? Where do I go? And what am I doing?
Yeah, so the point of it all is to become visible. If you've got a great product that you want to sell, a great website, but no one's there to see it, then what's the point? And what you want to do is not just to become visible, you need to become visible for the right people that will buy. If you're number one for something that people aren't buying, or you're targeting the wrong group of people, then again, the strategy is wrong. So you are putting yourself in front of that perfect person who will convert and make you a lot of money. So it's all about visibility and making yourself incredibly trustworthy and credible to Google. So Google needs to trust you, and that's done through a variety of different signals, as well as people need to trust you. So you're building a reputation, basically.
Okay. And then in terms of the strategy and tactics, for a small business and going in, what would you suggest we do? How do we start that going?
I actually talked about this in my workshop as well, but step one is get tracking tools like Google Analytics, Google Search Console, and Google My Business. It's called Google Business Profile nowadays. But from what I heard so far, all of the businesses here, they are local, so they've got a registered address. And if you do, you need to have a Google Business Profile set up so people next to you can find you very easily. That would be the first step. And also, of course, figure out who is your perfect customer. And then you need to see, either do your own SEO if you want to, or pass it to a specialist and then say, here, this is Nancy. She's the person I want to sell to. And then that's how the strategy starts.
And of course, the sales proposition has to be right as well.
Absolutely.
Because there's no point in taking people to it if you can't translate them into an actual client at the end of it.
Exactly. Once you bring the person to the site, so my job as an SEO is to get that person to your website, and then a UX designer is the person that gets that person to convert through your services.
Brilliant. Now, Rod's put a question in the chat about AI. Rod, have you got a strong enough connection? Do you want to voice that question yourself? Do you want to have a go at it? I've got it written. Well, we can all see it in the chat there if you can't. Either. Okay, well, let's go with it. What's AI going to do for your business in terms of SEO? Can you get a visibility on
that? AI for business. I've got an interesting outlook on this that many people don't really agree with. I think AI is a fantastic tool to save time. And if you use it correctly and safely, then you will get amazing results. If you use AI to cut corners and publish content that does not serve your customers, but just floods your website with the same things that everyone else has, then that is hugely detrimental. And that will come in an algorithm update in the next couple of months. I am almost certain of that. At the moment, it's a bit black and white because Google hasn't said AI is bad for SEO, but obviously based on the research that the better specialists do, because we want to future-proof. We don't want to jump on trends. We want to make sure that in 5 years' time, this is still valid. AI is probably not the best idea, but it does help if you use it correctly.
Yeah, that's a really interesting take on AI and how that's going to be changing things in the longer term future. Does anybody have any questions they want to lob at Kira? Anything raised there in the thoughts? It was a very quick gallop through things. Okay, so listen, thank you, Kira. That's really interesting. Have you put your contact details in the chat? If you haven't, please do so. I'm quite sure that I'm quite sure that some of the people will arrange to make a note. And I'm also reasonably confident that you'll be making a few more appearances at the shows as we go forward. And so if you want a little bit of a chance to explore this further, maybe the next show we're in Gloucester on the 28th to 29th of February. So thank you so much, Kira. It's really interesting.
Thanks for the questions.
That's okay. Now listen, and welcome to Stephanie. Now, Steph and I met a little under a month ago, I think, probably. And there are one or two moments in my world where I've ended up having a chat with somebody who has been talking about and is specialized in things which I find, yeah, these are techniques I've been using for years in the entertainment and festival and music industry, and it's great. And this particular area is about laughter. Laughter is a very simple word. It's maybe not about laughter, it's about humor. If you think about a situation that you're trying to diffuse, let's go to an extreme, humor is a very powerful tool. And actually, when you start understanding the emotional effects that humor and laughter has on a human being, you get into a very interesting situation. So, Steph, I'm going to invite you first just to introduce yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Pete. How are you? I'm glad to see you. My name is Stephanie Hill, and I am Chief Laughter Officer at the Laughter Works. Exactly. And your faces have just said it all. That's all we need to do. Laughter is my business. It's my passion. And it is, sadly, it's not about relying on comedy and jokes and humour. I will alter the course of that conversation slightly. My belief is, and I firmly hold to this belief, that laughter can be used as a powerful connector, as something that can, yes, it can diffuse situations. However, it can be used as an exercise without relying on any outside source. You can laugh for any reason as an exercise, and it's incredibly powerful in the business industry as well as being in the personal industry. Yeah. So I do laughter workshops for corporates. I've worked with people with cancer, with dementia. I've worked with school children. I've worked with teenagers, tough gig. I've worked with in the NHS and other service providers in the health service. And I'm finding it more and more interesting how laughter is being utilised and how we need to do much more of it to empower ourselves.
So akin to music, and Steph, for reference, because you joined us a bit later on, you've got a bizarre number of musicians and artists on this call, but that's a whole other story another way. But akin to music, where if you consider for a second, I sometimes use this analogy, you know, you put on the track that is your favorite music track, and it has the ability to change your outlook on life. You know, if you think about the position you were in at the point when that track you started, and you think about the mental position you're in as you come out of it, something has shifted in the brain. That we're in a biological, neurological game here. We're not just in a good bit of music. Now we maybe are in a good bit of music, but there's more to it than that. And also then if we move that across to the humor thing, and if you imagine the most tense situation in the world, and it can be a big if, you can crack that into genuine humor, and I don't mean hacking somebody off by cracking a bad joke, I mean genuinely taking to the point where somebody is smiling. It's really difficult to get annoyed with somebody if you're in a humoured situation. So there's an art form that is a journey from A to B. And Steph, talk to us about how humour actually engages as you move through that space. How do you basically headbutt somebody with humour? Go for it.
And again, I'm going to have to take you back a step, because it's not about humour. The connection that you get through humour is the connection you get from laughter, or from a smile, or from that interpersonal connection. It isn't about humour, because if we rely on jokes or comedy or humour, we are going into a dodgy area, because we're hoping that there's a reciprocity in our humour. And let's face it, we've all got different kinds of senses of humour. We've all got things that we find funny or not funny, and it's really, really difficult to be able to bridge those. So I don't go in for the humor bit. I go in for the understanding how the laughter bit works. So I think if we can encapsulate it into what actually works, when we laugh together, when we laugh, even whatever we're relying on, be it on jokes and comedy and humor in the traditional way, or if we're doing it as an exercise, which is what I advocate, you're releasing serotonin, you're releasing oxytocin, and you're releasing some of the endorphins. Beautiful, wonderful things are physically happening in your brain. When you've made those connections and there's another person there with you who's doing the same thing, that is the reciprocity, and that is the connection that happens. And once you've laughed with somebody, it's really, really difficult, as you said, Pete, to get cross with them. You've got to find a way forwards because you've already created a connection, a way of being, a feeling of camaraderie through laughter. So what I'm trying to advocate is laughing for no reason as an exercise within a business, within an organization, is a hugely beneficial place to go because you're creating these lovely connections. What it then does is embodies an ability for you, the individual who's learned how to laugh as an exercise on their own with other people. They can actually, you can use this on a day-to-day basis. The time that you laugh, the time that you bring that lightness, that connection to other people means that they're going to be working better with you anyway. And you're right, it can absolutely diffuse a situation because your state, which is where I'm advocating people get their state to be in a better place, moving into any situation, they can use laughter as a powerful, powerful tool to do that. When you're in a great state, you're going to be in a much better place to work with, deal with, or cajole people to work with you in a better way.
So that what you've just been saying there is very much about you and your state, the position you're starting from. I'm aware that in a rolling dialogue with another person or party or organization, then the use of, I take your point, laughter and humor, but I'm just, let's default to the word humor, although I do absolutely take your point. The use of that is important. And I always, when I'm thinking about these things, sometimes I go back to a specific event that will remain nameless, but we had a very potentially life-threatening structural situation with the stage, okay? And we knew it was a problem. And part of it wasn't an organized game plan, it was just how you do things, but we knew we had to get that sorted, and we got it sorted, and we had kit arriving on site, all this kind of game. And we had a very tense situation with the client's health and safety person who thought they were going to be facing up for a standoff battle, that they felt this had to be done. And you could see that situation was developing. And actually, not because we wanted to use humor to manipulate the situation, but because we wanted to wait until we knew we were absolutely under control before we actually opened our mouths and said anything. And you could see the tension building and building and building. And eventually I was sat in a desk in the back of a production office, I stood by my desk actually, and I could see them from across the production office coming through the front door. And there were two of the guys, and I knew them really well. I mean, these are good friends, you know. And you could see there were kind of, it was safety in numbers. You could see the body language, they were strolling up. And you just sort of, they eventually built up all of their energy and all their psyche to say, right, this has got to happen. And I just knew, at that moment this was going to end well because we had already done it. And they had to come all the way across site. They didn't know what was live. And you were able to let them build and build and build and build. And then you say, there's something you need to know here. And bang, it's done. And the whole thing just dissolved in a hilarious, you know, I won't tell you what they called me because they realized I'd let them go the journey, but I had to because I didn't want to make promises we couldn't deliver on. For me, I always cast back to that because that took a moment of extreme tenseness into a really good, humorous position. Now, it had loads of stuff going on around the back of it because you had, you know, things had to have happened. But it fascinated me how that broke the tenseness and actually created a relationship which, and it was all about laughter and humor, if that makes sense.
And I love it. I love it. I love the fact that you let them build themselves up into a frenzy, because people do, justifiably sometimes, not justifiably other times. However, what you did was, as you say, you got your ducks in a row. You knew what the outcome was going to be. You knew how this was going to be dissolved. So you were able to be in a really good state to be able to deal with them anyway. If you hadn't had all the ducks in a row, if you hadn't had all that solution created and ready to go, it would have been a completely different bag of spanners. However, what you could have done then is use some of the laughter techniques to create you into a really good state that said, okay, I've got it coming in, but I'm in a good place.
Yeah.
I'm in a really resourceful place. And then it's about your body language. It's about how you present yourself. It's about how you come out of that office at the back, or how they come into it, and how you all have face-to-face combat, if you like. Do you know what I mean? So it's about utilizing the tools which we teach at Laughterworks to embolden yourself, to give yourself another thing that says, I'm in charge here. I'm in a good place. I'm powerful. I'm resourceful, no matter what happens.
And I must say, now I think about it in those terms, if we hadn't been in what I would loosely describe as the control position there, i.e. knowing being in control of the situation, then that would have quite dramatically changed my approach to how I tackle it. You wouldn't have let them get to that point but we used the fact that they worked themselves at that point to actually create a good outcome. Yeah. Okay. No, that's a good, yeah. Brilliant.
And the other thing about it, Pete, is now that you knew those two guys and they were good friends of yours anyway, they could have been complete random strangers. The outcome was the same. And the outcome is now that you laughed together, you've made a connection together, then you have forged a new ability to be able to work in a better, more productive way with two people who you may have had a bit of a challenge with, because you've made that. And that is where, if you want to call it humor, you want to call it laughter, you want to call it the terminology is it's irrelevant. The point is that you're making a connection with people through laughter, through that, whether it's a smile, whether it's through laughter, whether it's through a shared look that can happen. It's all about making those human connections.
And I guess also that I would just, as a short addendum before we maybe just go into other bits of this, is you also have to be careful with this, because you have the concept of the in-joke, where so you've got to be very careful you don't create silos and cliques, because humor, laughter is such a powerful tool, it can become exclusive as well as inclusive. So,
and that's and that's why I focus on the laughter, not the humor, because they are absolutely, laughter is an inclusive, mainly inclusive operation. Mainly it's inclusive because it is the universal language. There's not a person on the planet who, I don't think there's a person on the planet that can't laugh. Most beings will laugh in some way. Elephants laugh, rats giggle. It's been scientifically proven. So there is a connection that we have through laughter, but no, jokes and comedy, stay well away.
Interesting. Okay, let's just change tack a little bit. Kate, so you run laughter workshops. Now, I mean, just describing that you run a laughter workshop is more or less guaranteed to raise a smile anyway, just because of the title of what it is. But just unpack that a bit. What do you take away from a laughter workshop? What does it look like? How do you get the positive outcome?
So what does it look like? It looks like however many attendees. There might be 10, there might be 5, there might be, I've done 1,700 on Zoom, quite terrifying. However, it's workable. And the way that it works is I introduce 4 basic laughs. Then we do some gentle exercises of shoulders up, shoulders down with a ha, ha, ha. I can do those with you in a moment. And the basis of it is to help people understand that you can laugh for no reason. And it's an alien concept, because we are absolutely programmed that you've got to rely on jokes and comedy and humor. And so when you don't, and you actually laugh as an exercise because somebody's asked you to, it can be uncomfortable to start with. It can be a little, oh, I'm not quite sure I like this. I don't know why I'm here. Who's made me come? However, within a few minutes, people are laughing. And whether it's real laughter or fake laughter almost doesn't matter at the beginning, because the body doesn't know the difference between real laughter and fake laughter. You're still getting the serotonin, the endorphins, the oxytocin. You're still getting all the magic from laughter, even though it can be fake until you make it. And so it goes from being the 4 basic laughs, and then we carry on through the session, and the session can be anything from a 15-minute energizer, which me at the front of the stage for 80 accountants on a Wednesday morning after they've been out on the jolly on the weekend, on the night before. That was a tough gig. However, it's amazing what people will do when you ask them to do it. And it's amazing how they will engage when you ask them to do it. And then it's amazing how beautiful the sound of laughter becomes, because it is genuine, because we are gregarious animals, we want to be around other people, and because it's a great connector. And so what you get is, so we've done the 4 basic laughs, we've done some extra laughs, I've gone into a little bit of the science behind it, how it changes your body, how it changes your reaction time to things, how it is a beautiful thing that you can use with your family and your friends and anybody else. You can and then we gather. By this point I've kind of gathered some info on people. You can read them, you can see what they want to do and what they don't want to do, and I might introduce a laugh which is theirs, and they decide what the laugh looks like, what it feels like, etc. By this point we're all giggling. Most of the time it's genuine. Most people are involved. You're not going to get all the people all the time. You're going to get most of them some of the time. But what I want people to get a hold of and to take home from this is, yeah, I can come in and just do a laughter workshop and you'll have a really nice time and you'll go home, and that's fine. So for those 15, 20, 35 minutes, you've had a really good time and you've had some playfulness, which, let's face it, is a beautiful thing for you to be able to do. But the big thing for me is take it home and use it on a day-to-day basis. The proof of how laughter can help your psyche just shift. Your mental health can be, if not healed, then at least helped fundamentally by doing something every day. And it's as simple as something like this. If you'd all please just give me a minute of your time. And if you all sit up straight, and then if you all take a deep breath in, and when you take a deep breath in, you're going to bring your shoulders up. And you take your shoulders up, and then when you let out your air, you're going to let it out with a ha 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 ha. And then you might want to do it again. And then you let it out with a ha 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 ha. And then you do it one more time, because you're all smiling and laughing now. And and that is the beauty of what I do and what we do at Laughterworks, is you've all just connected in a way just because I asked you to. You weren't relying on jokes and comedy and humour. You were simply doing it because it felt good, because I'd asked you to, because you wanted to. But if you do that every single morning, and I am living proof of this, absolute living proof of this, it has changed my life fundamentally. Instead of being the very anxious, very worried person, instead I wake up and every single morning I do those 3 times. And the serotonin hit, the endorphin release, the fact that I have a little giggle to myself because I live alone with my dog. And it's brilliant. I end up giggling most of the morning. People see me, they react differently to me now. They go, hey, and it's a big smile, because they've got a big smile coming out, because the smile is the closest distance we can possibly be from another human. I just think we have this beautiful technique that we can take home, and that's what I want to do with the laughter workshops, and that's what I do. So I hope people take something home. They can use it in business, they can use it in their home life, they can use it with their kids, they can use it with older people, younger people, people they don't know. You can use laughter in any way. So that's my take home for them.
So there are so many directions we could go with this, which we're not going to because we just don't have the time. But I'm fascinated there. You know, positive mental attitude comes into this statement. Then you go off into the arts and how the arts impact on all this, and arts and business and how it all goes into business. You go into mental health. You can go into so many different areas. So that's been absolutely brilliant. We don't have time now, but I'm reasonably sure by the time we've had a chance to talk further, we'll see some content building into the shows along the way. And actually, if people want to watch out for that, they can do, and there will be an opportunity to explore this a little bit further, because I am absolutely clear in my own mind that it's a very easy thing to take into a workplace, a lot more easy than some of the, choirs and music and things can all be very positive and you can use them, but it's quite a contrived situation when you take that stuff in. Humor and laughter is a different animal because it's on a very one-to-one interpersonal level, and actually by managing it and getting to understand how it works, I think is a good investment of time as well.
And the other thing that is, whilst I believe in the arts and I believe in the choirs and the music, everything is anything that raises people's vibration, anything that raises people's awareness of themselves, anything that raises their ability to feel good about themselves, I am completely on board with. The thing about laughter is that there's an immediacy to it. It's an immediacy which then there is a leave behind, a take home. And then in the workplace, what I've just done with one client overseas, and I love it, is every morning they get a giggle. So when they open up their system in their laptops, it giggles with them. And it's the sound of their team and their giggle that they had when they were doing the laughter shop a few weeks ago. So the leave behind is that they remember, they automatically get a serotonin release. They automatically go, oh, that was good fun, wasn't it?
Brilliant.
Starts the day beautifully.
So listen, Kira's got a question in the chat. I'm not quite sure whether we've answered it or not. Kira, do you want to fire in with that, or where are we at with that?
Yeah, I've read this online. I don't know if this exists, but they lock people in a room and then one person starts laughing and then they all laugh. Is that a thing? And if it is,
the locking in the room, Kira, that's terrible.
Maybe it's not locked. I don't know, but it's a room.
The thing about laughter is it is absolutely contagious, because this is just one of the nutty things I like to do. So if you've ever been on the Underground in London, we all know that it's a little bit square and a little bit pointy and a little bit, don't talk to me, let me have my own space, leave me alone. And so I did a little bit of I just thought I'd see how it went. So I stood in the corner and started laughing to myself. And then I caught eye of somebody else and she started laughing and she had no clue why. But by that point, 3 or 4 other people, we had the entire carriage. It was only for about, I don't know, minute and a half, 2 minutes. Everybody was in stitches for no reason than they could be. There were probably people there who were feeling it very uncomfortable. There were possibly people who had got off the stop early because they wanted to get away from the craziness. But there would have been people who took away something, which was that lovely human connection again and a little bit of something different in their world. So does it work? Yes. Should we lock them in a room? Not so much.
Brilliant. Brilliant. James, you had a question floating around there earlier. Do you want to voice it, or have we covered it, or where are you at?
Stephanie and I were on a panel last week at the business show that you put on, and Stephanie did invite everyone in the room to stand up, and there were people who didn't. And I know, Stephanie, you said a moment ago, we're all gregarious, whatever. We're not. There are some people who are introverts. There are some people, in my question in the chat, I've talked about this psychometric that I use in FIRO-B. It's got 3 elements: inclusion, control, and intimacy. And it's how much. So if somebody was to join a team, some people have different levels of inclusion, that they want the team to include them, and how much they allow the team to include them, how much they control the team, how much they allow the team to control them, and how much intimacy they give the team, and how much intimacy they want to receive from the team. So it's all 2-way on 3 levels. There are just some people who don't want to be included, and for whatever reason, there were a very small number of people last week in the workshop who didn't stand up, We don't know why. We don't know why. Maybe they were self-conscious. Maybe they didn't want to be included. I don't know. How do you deal with those, Steph? How do you deal with it?
So, and you're absolutely right. And it was that out of the 20 people who were in the room, there were 2 that didn't stand up, and they were 2, and they were sat right at the front, and they were determined, and their whole body language, if you remember, was nope, I'm not doing it. And I love those people because they remind me, number one, you're absolutely right, not everybody is gregarious. As humans, it's a human condition of gregariousness. We want to be in a pack mainly. However, you're absolutely right, James, there are loads of people who don't want to. I did a session yesterday, and there was one girl who just kept on backing against the wall, and I just wanted to be out of it. And you have to give them the space to do that. And it's about being polite, and it's about being kind, and it's about engaging as much as they want to be. And the worst thing for me is to let those people feel ostracized, because if they are internally wounded by, or they are much more reticent, the last thing I want them to feel is that everybody else is having a good time and they're not. So for me, it's about keep on engaging. Ha 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 ha. You don't need to go near them. It's just about eye contact, because the eye contact and that connection is still building something which is better than it would have been before. And better's not a great word. What I mean is it's starting the building block of connection. So you're right. I'm not going to go up and go ha 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 in their face, because that would be not kind. However, making sure they still feel included is imperative, and especially in a bigger group, because I've dealt with some big groups, and you can see, you've got to watch the body language. You've got to watch it, and you've got to, but isn't that a human connection anyway? So that's how I would deal with it. And I hope that answers your question.
Brilliant.
Thanks very much, Steph. Yeah.
Now, gosh, we've been rolling on well. Has anyone got anything else they want to ask? Otherwise, we're just going to roll on a little bit from here. Put your hands up now, or forever hold your peace. Kira and Steph, thank you so much. That's been really, really interesting.
You're very welcome, and I'm going to have to love you and leave you. As I said, Pete, I've got to run to another meeting. I'm going to do a laughter workshop for 7-year-olds, and they all have challenging needs, and so we're going to go and do a lovely session with them this afternoon. So I wish you all very much much love, and stay well, and I will please be in touch any way you want to.
Thank you.
My details.
Thanks, Steph.
Take care.
Appreciate that. Bye.
Bye-bye.